from Natick, Massachusetts. I currently teach 5th grade, but I'm really 7th grade, 8th grade math teacher. That's the majority of my experience, and I'm middle school math department head. I'm going to share my screen. Oh, you have to stop. Do I have to stop yours first, or I can just do it?
That's fine. Go for it. Take it over.
Awesome. So I'm actually going to walk you through the process of how I do this. So it's going to be a little, I think, messier. You know what I didn't do though? I don't know if I did this right. Okay. All right. So let me talk a little bit about what my process is. I'm going to talk about how I set up the lesson and kind of what I ran into. So we basically, just so you know, on Thursday afternoon in March, they canceled after school help, and then we were out. So there was no warning, there was no nothing. Nobody knew that we weren't going to be out. Initially, when they were talking about being out, they were talking about being out for 3 weeks. So teachers left with whatever they had without knowing they weren't going to come back. So there wasn't any opportunity for us to go back into the building and get stuff. So whatever you had at home is what you had to teach. Does that make sense? Okay. So being a math department head had some unique challenges, because not only did I have to prepare my class, I also had to think about how do I help get my department ready to teach virtually. Okay. Our first way they set us up is they said, for the first 3 weeks, we're just going to do enrichment. So when I met with my department, I said, let's take the next 3 weeks and play with different apps and different things, so that if we do have to do this long term, we're in a really good place to teach long term. So the components I came up with teaching my virtual math class was, I still wanted to do the key components of my lesson. Okay. We knew that lesson delivery was going to happen. I wanted students to transition and feel the same as what they felt in class. Okay. What I had some challenges with was students were using whatever devices they had at home. So it could be an iPad, it could be a MacBook, it could be a Chromebook, and they may not or may be touchscreen. So that was a challenge. The district did provide Chromebooks for any student that wanted them. So I did at least have all my students on devices, but they were all varying devices. So I wanted to have my key components of my lesson. So I wanted to be able to have some kind of warm up. I wanted to be able to do some direct instruction, because we left in the middle of my fractions unit. So I still had to do subtracting fractions, multiplying fractions, and dividing fractions, which, if you've ever taught math, is a beast. Okay, never mind doing it virtually. I wanted to be able to give students an opportunity to do independent practice, to get feedback, to have some kind of exit ticket, and some home ability to do some practice at home. I needed the ability to actually model how to solve the problems. I wanted students to be able to do it with me or to move at their own pace as well. And I also needed a way to track and to have some kind of accountability. So my first kind of step with this is, I was thinking, oh my gosh, I need a virtual whiteboard. So what is my virtual whiteboard going to look like? I had an iPad at home. Okay. It was a school iPad. I've had it for 4 years. I want to say it's got to be like 9 years old. Okay. So I was originally like, oh great, I can use Jamboard. I can integrate the Jamboard with the computer. It'll be awesome. iPad does not take any new apps. It's that old. Okay. So I was like, okay, I can still use Jamboard, or I can use app. I've used them before. I'll just write on them, which is great. I can project it. I can write on it. Know that I'm using Google Meet. We don't use Zoom. Okay. I have a MacBook with a little tiny baby keypad. Okay. And if you've ever tried to use a stylus and write on that, it is not fun. Okay. And it wasn't sustainable long term. Okay. So I was like, and I even tried having 2 computers and using the Jamboard, and it just got kind of icky. So I was like, okay, I've got an iPad. There's got to be a way to do this. Okay. So I played around with it, and I came up with a couple different solutions. So what's kind of cool is, if you have an iPad and you plug it into the computer, you can use QuickTime, and you can click on QuickTime, and you can actually run the iPad screen share by using creating a new movie recording and choosing your iPad. Oh, of course it's going to act funny. choosing your iPad as the camera. All right. Okay, so now, oh, there you go. So now I can actually present on my iPad using QuickTime, and I can actually write on it, and the students can see what I'm writing, which was kind of neat, right? Now, loving it, it's great, okay, but it's finicky, okay? So like I literally had to just unplug the cord and plug it back in. Like it's finicky about what cord you're using, it's finicky about everything, okay? So I was like, all right, this is great, and I can teach my teachers how to use this. And I can also, I'm using it as a whiteboard, but I could easily go into the camera mode, and I could use it as a document camera. So right now it's got a thing on it, but I could actually literally take it out, and a lot of my teachers are doing that, and use it as a document camera. So that's kind of cool as well. Oh, did I lose it here? All right, so let me answer that up for a second. Okay, so that's kind of cool, but again, it's kind of finicky, right? So I was like, okay, I need something that's a little bit better than this that I don't have to really worry about. So I did some research, and I found this app that's called XMirage. And it's this little app here. And what it lets you do is it lets you AirPlay your iPad like you would like an Apple TV. And then all you have to do is click AirPlay, and I can do the same thing, okay? And then I can easily toggle back and forth. And if I lose it, I just re-AirPlay, and it's much, much quicker. And I don't have to worry about the plug or plugging in or anything like that. So that's how I kind of came up with my virtual whiteboard. And then I kind of integrated it into my lesson. So I'm going to talk about that kind of next. So when I started my lesson creation, I first started by making Google Slides. And in my Google Slides, I was doing Equatio, which is the math. So I was making Google Slides, and I was using Equatio to make all the different equations, and I was projecting this. But then again, I was finding like, this isn't working super great because I need to be able to write on it in the moment. So I can't just project it and have the kids do it. I need to be able to model problems as we're going through. So then what I was doing is I was inputting my slides into Explain Everything, and then I was using those and writing on them, which was working really well. And then I was like, okay, now I need something because I need to be able to see how the students are doing. So I was using, my other app I was using was Socrative, which was great, except for I was having my iPad, my computer, Socrative open, and there was just so much going on. And because I was clicking the slides, they had to wait for me to click the slides. So like if a student wanted to go to the next slide, they had to wait for me to do it. So I was like, I need something else that not only allows me to get feedback from the students, but also allows me to let them either move with me or move ahead of me depending on what we're doing. So what I played around with was the Peardeck add-on. So I'm going to show you how that works, which is kind of cool. So Peardeck's an add-on that's pretty easy. During the COVID, they were offering like a free until the end of the school year thing. And I'd used it before a little bit, but not a ton, because I teach 5th grade and we're not one-to-one. So it wasn't something I used all the time. So basically for Peardeck, I would go in and you just add a question to a slide. So you can see it on the bottom of my slide where it says students write your responses. So at the beginning of the lesson, I give them a code or I give them a link, and they go in and they solve these problems, and then they put their answers in, and I can see their answers, and I can see that they're participating, which worked out really, really well. And it also at the end will give me a report, and that report will show me how many students were participating, if they were participating, if they understood the material. I can give instant feedback because I can read the feed, but I can also go back and look at it afterwards. So that was pretty cool. The other piece that I kind of needed was I needed something for them to do for independent work. So the way our district works is Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we have Google Meets and 30-minute classes. And then after those 30-minute classes, on those off days, on Tuesdays and Thursdays and over the weekend, we expect them to do 20 or 30 minutes of math work. And then we do office hours on Tuesdays and Thursdays to support them. So I needed a way to push out work to them. Now, I had always used Edulastic, but primarily we had used it for a formative assessment app. and or like for benchmarks or assessments, but not as a regular ongoing basis for homework. So we're keeping the Edulastic and using it for multiple things, but just using Google Forms. What I realized is Google Forms just wasn't what I needed. So we ended up just doing all the homework on Edulastic. And so what was cool about that is I can assign the homework and then I can look at their results and I know, am I okay to move over, like move on? Is there a trend or do I need to go back? I can also, reach out to any of those kids who haven't done it or haven't started it. So using those things has given, and it gives them instant feedback. They know how they did right away. So that's worked really well for me as well. So I kind of threw a lot of stuff out here at you. So I will tell you, between those apps, it's been awesome. And learning how to do broadcast the iPad through the MacBook has been definitely a changer for myself and for my department. And I know later on Karen Hernandez is going to talk about how she did it with Android devices. So that's, I think, would be pretty interesting because I didn't really explore that as much, but I think that'd be something awesome to learn about as well.